Good evening, America. Tonight I need you to picture something. A 900-year-old medieval castle sitting on a cliff overlooking Lebanon. A fortress built by the Crusaders in the 12th century, one that has changed hands through wars and occupations and withdrawals for nearly a millennium. And on that castle today, the flag of Israel is flying. Not inside Israeli territory, not near the Israeli border. On Lebanese soil, deep inside a country where an American-brokered ceasefire is supposed to be in place, where diplomats have been negotiating peace for weeks, where more than 3,000 people have already been killed since March. Israel crossed the Litani River, sent ground forces further into Lebanon than at any point since 2006, captured that castle and raised its flag. And Lebanon's prime minister called it a scorched earth policy. France called it unjustifiable and demanded a United Nations Security Council meeting. And while all of that was happening, the Iran peace deal still sits unsigned on Donald Trump's desk. Tonight, we are going to tell you everything about what Israel just did in Lebanon, what it means for the entire region, and why the flag flying over Beaufort Castle may have just made the Iran deal harder to sign than ever before. Stay with me. Let us start with the Beaufort Castle story, because it deserves to be understood in its full historical and strategic context, because only with that context can you understand why this moment is so significant. Beaufort Castle, known in Arabic as Qalat al-Shakif, sits on a cliff north of the Litani River in southern Lebanon, near the city of Nabatea, which is Lebanon's fifth largest city. The castle commands sweeping views of southern Lebanon and the border with Israel. It is a UNESCO-recognized historic site, a medieval fortress that has survived 9 centuries of Middle Eastern history. And it has a deeply personal meaning for the Israeli military that goes far beyond its strategic value. Israel first captured Beaufort Castle in June 1982 during its invasion of Lebanon. The battle for Beaufort became one of the defining moments of that war, one that cost Israeli soldiers dearly and was later turned into a major Israeli film about the cost of war and occupation. Israel held the castle and the surrounding territory for 18 years, maintaining a security zone in southern Lebanon until its withdrawal in the year 2000. That withdrawal was deeply controversial inside Israel. Many in the Israeli security establishment believed walking away from southern Lebanon was a mistake. And for 26 years, they watched Hezbollah fill the space that Israel left behind, build tunnel networks and weapons depots and launch infrastructure, and use southern Lebanon as a platform for attacks against northern Israel. Now, Israel is back. And the Israeli defense minister's statement about the recapture of Beaufort was not written in the language of military operations. It was written in the language of history. He said, and I want every American to hear these exact words, 44 years after the heroic Battle of Beaufort, and on this day commemorating the soldiers who fell in the First Lebanon War, our troops have returned to the summit of Beaufort and once again raised the Israeli flag there. That statement is not a military briefing. That is a declaration that Israel does not intend to make the same mistake twice. Israel left in 2000. It is saying today that leaving was the mistake and that it is back, and that this time the calculation may be different. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the capture of Beaufort a dramatic shift in the Lebanon campaign. He said Israel has now killed 8,000 Hezbollah militants since the October 7, 2023 Hamas attack on Israel, including 700 in the last month of fighting alone. He said, and this is a direct statement that carries enormous consequences for the peace process, I instructed the IDF to expand the maneuver in Lebanon. Our forces crossed the Litani River and captured the Beaufort Ridge, one of the most important strategic points for defending the communities of the Galilee and safeguarding the security of our forces. Crossing the Litani River is not a minor tactical adjustment. The Litani River has been the defining boundary in southern Lebanon since the 1978 UN Security Council resolution that called on Israel to withdraw from Lebanese territory. The Litani has been the line that defined Israeli occupation, Israeli withdrawal, and the zone that UN peacekeepers have been trying to maintain for decades. Every time Israel crossed the Litani, it was an escalation of historic significance. And Israel just crossed it again. Today, June 1st, 2026. With a peace deal on the table that specifically requires a Lebanon ceasefire framework as a condition for Iran to sign. Now, let us talk about what is happening on the ground in Lebanon right now, because the Beaufort Castle story is only the most dramatic and visible part of a much larger and more devastating offensive that Israel has been expanding across the entire south of the country. The Israeli military issued a sweeping evacuation order that affects an enormous section of southern Lebanon. Lebanese civilians were ordered to leave areas south of the Zerani River, which is approximately 40 kilometers or 25 miles from the Lebanese-Israeli border. This is the largest Israeli evacuation order since the early days of this conflict. The Zerani River is significantly further north than the Litani. This evacuation order is telling Lebanese civilians to leave not just the immediate border zone, but a large section of what has historically been considered central southern Lebanon. Tyre, one of Lebanon's oldest and most significant cities, a port city of deep historical importance, is now inside the Israeli evacuation zone. An Israeli strike near a hospital in Tyre wounded 13 medical staffers. The Lebanese Health Ministry confirmed it. AFP reporters on the ground described the strikes on Tyre as the strongest on that city since this war began. In the shelter city of Sidon, the largest city in southern Lebanon, a woman named Zainab Faki from the Nabatea area told reporters, "We are afraid. It is impossible for us to return to our home because the city is in great destruction." She said the arrival of Israeli forces at Beaufort Castle was tragic. Civil defense teams from the Tyre region were called to evacuate to Sidon. A few thousand people are still sheltering in Tyre's old city, sleeping in their cars, unable to leave, waiting to see what happens next. This is Lebanon. This is what is happening right now while diplomats argue over memorandums of understanding in Qatar. The Lebanese government's reaction was immediate and furious. Lebanon's prime minister described Israel's ground offensive and its scorched earth approach in the south as an attempt to establish permanent Israeli control over Lebanese territory. He called on the international community to intervene immediately. France heard that call. France's Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said on French television, and these are words you will not hear in much of American media, "Nothing can justify the continuation of Israeli military operations in Lebanon and its ever deeper occupation of Lebanese territory." France has formally requested an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council to discuss the Lebanon escalation. The UN Security Council will meet to discuss what France called a dangerous and unjustifiable escalation. And Hezbollah responded to Israel's offensive by firing dozens of projectiles into northern Israel, maintaining the cycle of attack and counterattack that has defined this conflict since March 2nd. Here is the number that every American watching this video needs to understand. More than 3,300 Lebanese people have been killed since the latest round of fighting erupted in early March. More than 9,400 wounded. More than 1 million displaced. And now a sweeping Israeli evacuation order covering much of the south of the country. Lebanon is not a side story in this war. Lebanon is where the war has been most continuous, most devastating, and most resistant to diplomatic resolution. And here is the strategic reason why what Israel is doing in Lebanon right now may blow up the Iran deal entirely. Iran has said repeatedly and publicly that any peace agreement with the United States must include a sustainable and lasting ceasefire in Lebanon. That is Iran's stated condition. Tehran said it will not put its name on a document that fails to protect Lebanon. And right now, as you watch this video, Israel is launching its largest ground offensive in Lebanon in 20 years. Israel is crossing the Litani River. Israel is raising its flag over medieval castles on Lebanese soil. Israel is issuing evacuation orders covering 40 kilometers of Lebanese territory. None of that is compatible with a sustainable and lasting ceasefire. All of it gives Iran reasons to walk away from the deal. And all of it is happening while the United States is simultaneously trying to convince both Israel and Iran to accept the same peace framework. The United States cannot simultaneously support Israel's Lebanon offensive and pressure Iran to sign a deal that requires a Lebanon ceasefire. Those two positions are directly contradictory. America is trying to hold both of them at the same time. And the Lebanese civilian population is paying the price of that contradiction with their lives, their homes, and their futures. Now let us zoom back to the Iran deal itself, because the diplomatic situation has its own new developments today that compound everything happening in Lebanon. The Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Iran still has not been signed. Trump walked out of the Situation Room on Friday without a decision. Vance said it was TBD. And since then, new complications have emerged. The U.S. Treasury imposed fresh sanctions on Iran's military oil sales arm in the middle of the peace process, a move that sent a deeply contradictory signal to Iranian negotiators who have been told that sanctions relief is coming as part of the deal. Iran's foreign ministry maintained on Friday that there are no nuclear negotiations currently taking place. The IAEA still cannot get inspectors inside Iran. And Iran's stockpile of 440 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, 972 pounds of material, a short technical step from weapons grade, remains unaddressed in the first phase of any deal. There is a specific new detail about the uranium question that has emerged this week that America needs to understand. According to reporting from the New York Times, the deal framework allows for Iran to downblend its enriched uranium, meaning diluting it to a lower enrichment level, and keep it inside Iran under some form of international supervision. Iran offered to do exactly that before the war began. Trump rejected that offer and attacked Iran instead. And now, after 93 days of war, the nuclear outcome being discussed is almost identical to what Iran offered before a single bomb was dropped. Every American should be asking, what did this war actually accomplish on the nuclear question? And the answer from the expert community is increasingly clear. Gregory Brew of the Eurasia Group said this week that the deal as structured is a victory for Iran in 4 ways, and a win for the United States in only 1. Iran kept its nuclear enrichment capability. Iran kept its ballistic missiles. Iran kept its proxy networks. Iran turned the Strait of Hormuz into permanent leverage. And America gets the war ended and the strait reopened. That is the deal on the table after 93 days of war. And it still has not been signed. Meanwhile, the Russia-Ukraine war adds one more layer of complexity to the global picture that cannot be ignored in tonight's report. Russia has been watching every development of the Iran crisis with intense strategic interest. Moscow and Tehran have deep economic and military ties. Russia has been supplying Iran with advanced weapons systems for years. And the Strait of Hormuz disruption has provided Russia with an unexpected economic benefit, as global oil price increases driven by the crisis have boosted Russian energy revenues at a time when Western sanctions were supposed to be strangling the Russian economy. Every day the Strait of Hormuz remains under Iranian control is a day that suits Russia's strategic and economic interests. Russia has no incentive to help broker a deal. And Russia's UN Security Council veto means that any Security Council action on Lebanon, no matter how urgently France requests it, can be blocked by Moscow. The geopolitics of this moment are not isolated to the Middle East. They are connected to every major strategic competition in the world. And every one of those connections makes the path to peace more complicated, not less. Let us now bring the full picture together for tonight, because you deserve a complete and honest summary of where things stand on June 1st, 2026, 93 days after this war began. Israel raised its flag over a medieval castle in Lebanon today and crossed the Litani River for the first time since 2006. Lebanon's prime minister called it a scorched earth policy. France called it unjustifiable. The UN Security Council will meet. 3,300 Lebanese are dead. Over 1 million displaced. Hezbollah is still firing rockets at northern Israel. The Iran deal is unsigned. Trump walked out of the Situation Room Friday without deciding. Iran's foreign ministry says there are no nuclear talks. The IAEA is still blocked from Iran. New U.S. sanctions were imposed on Iran in the middle of peace negotiations. Iran's enriched uranium remains in Iran. Iran's missiles are untouched. Iran's proxies are untouched. The Strait of Hormuz is partially open under Iranian management. 40 ships are transiting per day compared to 100 before the war. American consumers are still paying higher fuel and food prices. And the deal being described as almost done would leave the most important questions unanswered for 60 more days of talks that have not yet begun. America, here's my question for you tonight. Israel just raised its flag on Lebanese soil, crossed the Litani River, captured a historic castle, and ordered 40 kilometers of Lebanese territory evacuated, all while a peace deal with Iran requires a lasting Lebanon ceasefire as a condition for Iran to sign. Do you believe the United States should tell Israel to stop its Lebanon offensive immediately in order to save the Iran deal? Or do you believe America should stand fully behind Israel in Lebanon and let the Iran deal collapse rather than pressure its closest regional ally? This is the hardest question this war has produced. There is no easy answer. Drop yours in the comments right now. I want to read every single one. And if you are watching this and you are not subscribed yet, hit that button right now and turn on notifications, because this story is moving faster than any news cycle can contain, and we are here every single day making sure you never miss what matters.